our next speaker is Clorox. Clorox won what many people would call consumer household products. Here's Clorox's orbit chart, outperforming this particular category, right? All of this is in the supply chain to admire. I just flipped through them quickly just so you know it's there. All of these speakers are vetted. One of the issues I have is when you go to most conferences, people get up on stage and they're like, when they talk, have they really driven results, right? A lot of times I go to many events and I hear a lot of hot air. Well, you're not going to hear Rick McDonald talk about hot air. Rick is the winner of the Supply Chain to Admire for 2 years, not 2 consecutive, but still 2 years. He is the Senior Vice President and Chief Supply Chain Officer since December 2020. You couldn't have picked a worse time to become the Chief Supply Chain Officer when everybody needs bleach for safety, right? Now, you may think about Clorox's bleach, but also think about it for Brita, which is really about safe water. Burt's Bees, one of my favorite products. Fresh Step, when I worked at Clorox, nothing like a little kitty litter in the warehouse, right, Rick? And Glad, Hidden Valley Ranch, Kingsford Charcoal, Pine Sol, and also a number of other products. He has 23 countries that he manages and 6,000 employees. Please welcome Rick to the stage. Okay, Rick. Kevin was a hard act to follow here.
Oh, gosh, I'll do my best.
Okay.
I've got a hip that's not cooperating, so I'm going to use this. Clorox. Start with a little audience participation. What's your favorite product? Wipes? Yeah, knew that was going to be first. What else?
I love 409, but I couldn't get it at all.
We're making a lot of it now, so we're gonna put you back in business here.
We got it now. Okay.
Yeah. Did the portfolio that Laura mentioned surprise you?
Yeah.
Hidden Valley Ranch. Yeah. Hidden Valley Ranch. We have a new Hidden Valley Ranch product with truffle oil in it. We made, I think we made 350 cases of that. It was sold out in the first hour. There's a waiting list of 35,000 people who would like a bottle. So we'll see. Maybe this is the start of a new premium line of salad dressings. Yeah. So I'm going to talk to you today a little bit about Clorox. And then I've got 3 topics I'm going to try and work into 28 or so minutes. If we have time at the end, we'll do questions. So, if you look at Clorox, our company is 109 years old, and we're in the middle of a transformation. And I think that's what all good companies do over time, is they figure out ways to transform. Ours is pretty significant. We announced a restructuring at our analyst meeting in August. We're in the middle of doing some of the design work and planning for that. And we're very excited about a $500 million investment that we're making in our SAP capability. We're going from S3 to S4. It will also add a lot of other digital tools to the portfolio. So when you look at the company, $7 billion in sales or so. As Laura mentioned, 25 countries. We sell in 100 markets. And of those 9,000 employees, much like Kevin's company and many others, 6,000 of those are in my shop. And about 4,500 of them are in manufacturing. And, a lot's been said about Clorox over the last 2.5 years, the role that we played in the pandemic. The real heroes in our shop are the 4,500 people who kept coming to work every day. When we went into the pandemic, we had 2 objectives: keep our employees safe and healthy, and keep our plants running. And even in the early days, when we didn't know a lot relative to COVID and how to do that, we were really grinding hard 24 hours a day for about, 6 straight months. One of the best things we did was I hired an epidemiologist to come on staff, CDC-connected gentleman, Dr. Garrett. And he provided some extraordinary advice to us that gave us the confidence that we could keep our people safe and healthy, and we could look them in the eye and tell them that and be certain that we were as confident as we could be with the awareness that we had and the steps we were taking. And we had zero transmission of COVID during the pandemic in our manufacturing operations, which we're extraordinarily proud of. So the company's made up of a number of great brands. My favorite's Kingsford Charcoal. I'm a foodie, and I love to grill, and it is just a fantastic product. So next time you get a sunny day, grab a bag and do a little bit of grilling. Our company's mission is we want to help people be well and thrive every single day. And it speaks to our background and our roots as a health and wellness company, starting with a single product, Clorox bleach, but expanding to this portfolio. Now, this is a little bit of an eye chart, but the important part about this is about 85% or so of our sales are derived in North America. So we're very much a North American-centric company, but our international operations are extremely important as well. And we have operations in Latin America, the Middle East, Asia, Australia, and New Zealand, and they're a key part of the portfolio. This is a partial list of some of the recognition that we've received fairly recently. We're really proud of this list. It's a pretty broad list. It speaks to sustainability. The Wall Street Management 250 talks about the 250 best managed companies in the U.S. We're proud of that. We've got some great I&D metrics that we've been working really hard at. And then, of course, we're honored to accept today the Supply Chain to Admire Award for 2022. So 3 things for today's conversation. 1, customer transformation. Number 2 is digital acceleration. The third thing is our most precious asset, talent. And a lot of times I'm not sure, to Kevin's very great point, I'm not sure we always have that top of mind. We spend a lot of time looking at other measures, but I'm going to seek to amplify what we've done in this space and encourage you to consider how you're doing that with your folks, with your talent. So first off, customer transformation. This is a rapidly growing and expanding space. I read something the other day where in the retail environment, in the past year and a half, 5 to 7 years of progress that was anticipated pre-pandemic has actually occurred in a very short period of time. And we're feeling the effects of that, certainly, as we work to stay in sync with our customers and with our shoppers. This idea of frictionless omnichannel, so blurring the lines between brick and mortar, brick and click, pure play e-commerce, all of that has implications for the supply chain, and it really is leading to a lot of thinking on our side relative to how do we make sure that we are always available in whatever format, on whatever app, however he or she is choosing to shop our products. When they want them, we want to be available, and this frictionless omnichannel thing is something that will be a game changer as we move forward. The declining importance of brands and assortment breadth. Let me start with assortment first. We all experienced assortment minimization during the pandemic, mostly because things were sold out, products weren't being made, supplies weren't available. But in a lot of cases, it was a conscious choice of manufacturers. We made one of those choices with disinfecting wipes. Pre-pandemic, about 115 SKUs in our portfolio for wipes. Sizes, flavors, counts, you name it. If we could do something to find a shopper who was interested in a proposition, we made that product. Well, we made a decision early on to go from 115 down to our top 15 SKUs. And we made those SKUs relentlessly for about a year and a half. We built a factory within a factory in about 8 months. In fact, the really is, we went from an empty room in the plant that makes wipes in Atlanta to a fully functioning, highly automated line in about 4 months. Equipment delivery to start a production, which is unheard of for us, and just a timeline that we wouldn't have imagined a few years before. But it was necessary, and so we made it happen. But this breadth thing of assortment is going to be a difference maker in the marketplace as manufacturers look to really consolidate what matters most to the shopper. The idea of declining importance of brands, this is a place where we believe if you got a strong number 1 or 2 brand, there's always competition. We'll always compete amongst ourselves. We'll always work with retailers to improve our performance. But if that's not your position, the likelihood that those brands are going to be around long term are certainly smaller in our estimation. And these are trends that we think will occur. The death of traditional undifferentiated formats. And so we can all think about the uniqueness of certain formats that we shop in. The reality is, if you don't have a hook for the shopper, if you don't have something that differentiates you, and some of those are in the last item below relative to subscriptions and loyalty programs and such, it's going to be hard to compete with those that do. Shoppers are looking for experiences. They're looking for a lot of things, but certainly experiences are on the list. That's probably different than it was maybe 5 years ago. We've had a lot of great conversation about the power of data and technology, certainly AI and RPA and all the things, and I'm going to talk about digital, at least our digital part of things here in a minute, but those are all going to be absolutely essential to make sure that we can operate at the speed of the shopper, at the speed of the customer. And today I would tell you that many of us are not capable of doing that, but I know there's a lot of effort in the supply chain to make sure that we are moving in that direction. All this leads to different fulfillment ecosystems of the future, leveraging tools and capabilities to be able to, again, work at the speed of the shopper and be everywhere we need to be with our products when that product is required. And last but not least, the sixth trend is this idea of these programs, these services. People are really attracted to memberships, loyalty programs, subscriptions. How many Prime users here? Yeah, almost all of us. Why do we do that? Well, we do that because it's sort of an easy one-click way to not have to think about the freight. It's included. You can compare prices more easily. So things like that help the shopper make decisions faster are going to be in play. And for the supply chain, we know that it begins and ends with the consumer. And I have to give attribution of this to my friend Greg White, but it's absolutely true. 4 things to know about our supply chains. First of all, the focus and consistency of our supply chain strategies and their alignment with the business units. Kevin talked a good bit about the back and forth between BUs and the supply chain, and I think that happens in every single enterprise. The trick is to find ways to collaborate with our partners in sales, with our business unit leaders, and with our supply chain leaders so we really understand what their interests are. What are they trying to accomplish with their products? What's the purpose of their brands? And have a really active dialogue about all of that as we design our supply chains. Second of all, in the supply chain, we have to have a customer and consumer-centric focus. It's not just enough to be really excellent at supply chain capabilities. It really requires that end-to-end thinking, that understanding of what matters to the customer, what matters to the consumer, the shopper. The BU brand strategy translated in supply chain, this is our value segmentation work, and Laura spoke before about designing supply chains. We've been actively designing our supply chains for over a decade, and it's a rigorous process. But we feel like in most cases it's put us in a position where our supply chain is delivering exactly what the business needs, whether that's a highly active, highly energetic, very responsive supply chain, whether it's an efficient supply chain and everything in between. This is a very good conversation that we have with our business units so they understand what a supply chain is capable of and what a certain supply chain is going to cost and the service it can deliver. And we understand the interests of the business unit leaders relative to what they're trying to accomplish with their brands. Last but not least, we've talked a lot about KPIs, and I think we're all working on developing more of an end-to-end format for our tiering of KPIs and how those will help us understand our performance near real time, if not real time, find losses and fix them faster, and enable us to drive more continuous improvement. Digital supply network and digital acceleration. What is the very first thing, when I said those words, what's the very first thing that popped into your mind? Analytics. What else? Very first word. Connection. It's important that somebody say tools. Would somebody say tools? Tools. Good. I was hoping somebody would say that. Honestly, and I'm going to tell you why in just a second here in a slide. Usually the first thing that people think about are the tools, the capabilities, the apps. It's like the shiny thing that's new that you get to do something with. And I would tell you that of the 3 things I'm going to show you next, it's the least important. It's absolutely the least important. This is really about a tool set, but if it's not accompanied by this idea of mindset, skill set, there we go, skill set with the tool set, you're not going to get what you think you're going to get out of the tool set. And I'll tell you about these three in a second here, but as we went on our digital supply network journey, which started more than half a decade ago, this was a really powerful thing. When I came back from international into our global operations group, I heard people talking relentlessly about the tools, about the tools, about the tools. And I view it differently. I see it differently. This is like our Elevate project. What I've said to our senior team is, this is just a really big change management project with some technology applied to it. And it really is kind of flipping the script relative to how to think about these large-scale digital transformations that just about all of us are going through. And I really believe that to my core. If we're not doing a good job of thinking about the mindset of our leaders, the skill set, the upskilling and reskilling of our associates and our managers, the tools are going to be there, but we're not going to get nearly the juice out of them we think we will. So when we look at mindset, this is really understanding the mindset and clarifying it for your leaders. It's awfully instructive, and we did this exercise. It's instructive to really sort of quiz each individual leader about what their vision is digitally of the future. And there's really easy stereotyping that occurs in this space. I would encourage you not to do that. You'll find people who you might expect wouldn't have really a sweet clue about a digital future that are just going to rattle off some things that'll make your head spin. And then others that you think might be more native digital folks who don't really, they understand the here and now, but they haven't thought about what the future needs to look like. So this is really important work because what we're doing is transforming our companies as we operate them. And so we have to reimagine that work. And the leaders, this is a leadership activity, the will to change, the effort to encourage the organization, and the approach that will make all that change sticky, which is like the holy grail of executive education. How do you make things sticky? Well, that's true with any kind of change management exercise. This is really where we are focusing our attention. Skill set, upskilling and reskilling all the folks on your team. They're not going anywhere, and so it's your obligation to make sure that you are taking them on this journey with you. And what we found in some of the early days is people were actually a little bit afraid of the technology. Am I going to lose my job? Am I going to have a different job? Is it going to be too hard? Am I going to be able to do it? All the uncertainties that come with some significant change. And so we actually did some persona-based communication plans with a third party that worked out really well to help people where they were understand what this digital journey was going to look like and eliminate some fear so that we could get to the actual process of doing the change management and moving things ahead. I would also offer that in the skill set space, how you think about the talent that you're recruiting and the way that you communicate to the external markets for your recruiting profiles, your job descriptions, matters greatly. They're being read, they're being understood, and I would submit that those who are current with their job descriptions, their role descriptions, whatever you're posting online at Indeed.com or wherever else you source talent, that's going to matter a lot in terms of you getting the right talent for your enterprise. So this is transforming how we work in the middle of our operations in one of the toughest inflationary times ever. It is, I don't know, maybe the trifecta of what we've all been trying to do in the supply chain. But it requires hiring tomorrow's talent today, which speaks to that idea of the job descriptions being essential, the quality of those. I don't know when the last time as any of you have looked at the job descriptions that your teams are posting. I can tell you I went and looked at a couple of them. It was kind of a boring Saturday. I'm like, well, let me just, One came across my, and I looked at it, I'm like, oh gosh, I think we can do better than this. And so some of them are extraordinarily well written and we're attracting the type of talent we need, and others just need a little bit of a tune-up. This idea of digital dexterity is essential to building this frictionless supply chain. You cannot have a frictionless shopping experience without a frictionless supply chain. And so a lot of energy is going into sorting out, as we think about mindset, skill set, and tool set with our S3 to S4 activity, how do we make sure we're doing it in a frictionless way and we're really streamlining our processes in a way that enable this? This is about automating manual activity. We have countless areas where somebody is laboriously grinding over a spreadsheet, in some cases taking data from one system and manually translating it into another. And that's the type of work that not a lot of people want to do, and it's not value adding. And so we have to have the tools working for us instead of the opposite. And this idea of minimizing touches and automating manual activity is going to be key as we go forward here. It's also a pretty good labor strategy. Kevin talked about the number one thing is labor in his sector. It's mine too. The challenge of finding talent for manufacturing plants, for our supply chain operations is really pretty intense right now. And so anything we can do to minimize our reliance on a scarce labor pool is going to be beneficial. And so we're focused in that area as well. We've talked about real-time visibility to the data and eliminating latency, but the real trick out of this is how do you take all that data and create insights that matter in a time frame that helps your enterprise succeed. And this is a focus for us as we move forward. A little bit more on supply chain talent. So, don't know what your particular coaching protocol is in your enterprise, but I would submit that now more than ever, coaching is required. Not only because of the difficulty of the environment we're in, but if your firm is like mine, we're actually recruiting people who may not have spent a lot of time in the supply chain to come in and work in the supply chain. And so helping them understand a background that they don't have to help them perform their job, feel comfortable in the company, feel comfortable in their role is really critical. And so this element of coaching is a really big thing right now. Planning has always been important, whether it's workforce planning, succession planning, how you do your career ladder and development of supply chain professionals. We have something called Success at Clorox, which works off of our values and defines what it takes to be successful as a leader at the Clorox company. And we found that to be a very useful foundation for having great conversations with people about where their skill set is, where they'd like it to be, where we need it to be, and we build it off of that foundation. And last but not least, I'd say don't overlook the element of executive education as a way to drive performance, and also as a way to reward individuals. One of the programs that I built with Georgia Tech isn't up there. It was our Strategy and Leadership Forum. It was 2 weeks in residency, and I give a lot of credit to Georgia Tech for this. It was 21 modules. We graduated over 250 of our supply chain leaders and business unit leaders from this curriculum. It was designed around end-to-end thinking to really create this supply chain general manager mindset. And we're profoundly proud of that and really the work that Georgia Tech did with us on this. But we have 2 other programs, Global Operations Forum. The content's pretty similar to Strategy and Leadership Forum, but it's targeted at a different level in the organization. And then we've just created a 3rd program called Next, which I would loosely characterize as an MBA-ish type program based on some case studies. It's only 1 week in residence, and it's all capable of being done virtually. But we're using that to build upon the foundation of this end-to-end thinking and end-to-end mindset. And so this concept of executive education has been very powerful for us and our alliance with Georgia Tech. So 3 things. We're transforming now in many ways across the enterprise. We're transforming our thinking around our people. We're transforming how we think about our work, both skill sets, upskilling and reskilling the folks in our organization. And we are certainly thinking about how we're going to transform our relationships with our customers and our consumers. Mindset, skill set, tool set. In my opinion, that's the right order. And it's working out well for us as we think about our digital journey and accelerating our digital progress. And last but not least, our most precious resource is our talent. And this is something that we must pay attention to, especially in times when we have such a dire shortage of talent and labor that's not as available as we need it to be. So I would say invest in your talent, and they'll invest in you. Thank you very much.
So, thank you. Let's let you sit there for a bit. I'm just going to ask you a couple of questions,
Sure.
And I want to share with the group. You got that okay?
Yep.
So I was a Clorox employee, and I'm very proud that I was a Clorox employee. You talked about coaching. What Clorox didn't really train me for when I first joined Clorox was my role to be coached. Employees aren't always coachable. So lots of people that are listening on this virtual feed are very young, full of energy folks. How should employees change their mindset to be coachable?
That's a great question. I think the first is trust in your leadership that they have your best interest in mind. Certainly professionally and in many cases personally. And so if you start with that premise and you start with best intent from their coaching, then you can open up yourself to hearing whatever feedback it is that is relatable to you. I think the second thing is, I think we've all been here, it's tough when you come out of school because it's very tempting to think you know a lot. And you do. It just may not be exactly what you need to know for the role that you're in. And so this person that's leading you is responsible for helping to kind of round out any knowledge gaps that you have. And so if you approach it that way as well, that you're going to learn something from everybody. Sometimes it's what to do, sometimes it's not what to do. But if you approach it with best intent, you're going to get some skill gaps rounded out, and it's going to help your development long term. I think that would help someone new to an enterprise really come up to speed quickly with a coaching idea.
Some of the best coaching I've ever gotten in my life actually happened at Clorox. So I encourage you to talk to Rick about that. And Rick's going to be on the panel that we're going to have. The other question I've got, Rick, is you're the only company that I've followed that actually trained sales and marketing on supply chain complexity and constraints and supply chain design. And you built this program with Georgia Tech. I was very proud. You took some of my materials to put in it. But how did you get that initiative started? And many times, as I showed, sales and marketing and operations alignment is a huge issue. I mean, tell the group a little bit about that experience and how you got those really proud marketing folks to come learn supply chain.
Well, it started about a dozen years ago. The chief supply chain officer then, James Foster, said, hey, look, I know you went to school there. I know you know some people there. I have this idea that we could do better at educating our supply chain executives about the supply chain. We do annual engagement surveys, probably like many in the audience. And one of the gaps for us was supply chain leaders did not feel like we were developing them enough. He says, well, we go to Georgia Tech with it. Oh, yeah, of course I will. So we set up a session. We talked with the executive educators there. We worked for about 6 months to build this 21-module curriculum. And then we deployed it. And we ran it for 8 straight years. It was wildly successful. I will tell you the sales marketing story was a little bit of a lucky coincidence. So a friend of mine who works in sales is in the Alpharetta office. I had a couple of open slots in the first class, and I said, Paul, would you make a couple of weeks? He said, absolutely. And this was not well thought through by me at all. This was just sort of a coincidental thing that Paul loved it, and he was such a great evangelist that he helped me evangelize what it could do for others in sales and marketing. We had general managers, we had finance people, we had R&D people. So of those 250 graduates, we had a bunch of people from across the enterprise, and it's made us better.
It's made you hugely better, I think, when I do interviews. I don't know of any other company that has trained sales and marketing on supply chain complexity. I also don't know of any other company that has done as good a job on managing complexity and supply chain design. You talked about taking down those products during the pandemic. Hugely important, right? And so I think your understanding of sales and marketing allowed you to get that kind of alignment.
It did. I would love to give a lot of credit to our general managers, though. Okay. We were shoulder to shoulder, arm in arm on those decisions, and they were very quick to make those choices, which enabled us to leverage the assets we had to make as much as we could possibly make, not spending time on changeovers or ramp down, ramp up curve, but really making a lot of product. That was our mission, and that's what we did.
Well, great. Let's celebrate Rick's success. Let's give him a hand.
Thank you.
And the Clorox company and all those employees.